So your team finally makes the finals with their young franchise player after many seasons of terrible play behind a bad supporting cast and even worse management. But this finals appearance was made possible by the front office actually being able to hit on multiple draft picks and acquiring the right players at the right time to finally support their franchise player, finishing just short of the NBA championship. Though having this core who were mostly young at the time, you'd expect a long championship window, but that didn't seem to be the case, as a few seasons later, this superstar caliber player is now back at square one as his team got a lot worse in that time, and all the other teams around him in his conference got a lot better. Previously being at the top of the conference, but now they're on the outside looking in. If you don't know who I'm talking about already, I'm talking about Devin Booker and his situation with the Phoenix Suns right now. There were a lot of changes around the Suns after their finals run in 2021. Some of these moves were risky and others were questionable, but there was definitely a moment where it was the beginning of the end for this core. And in the very next season in 2022, after their finals appearance, the Suns finished the regular season winning a franchise best 64 games, finishing at the top of the conference, with Devin Booker having one of his best seasons of his career, making the first All-NBA team, and was looking like a superstar in the making. But just one game changed the narrative of the Suns completely in that 2022 season. And which game was that? The most important game in the playoff series, which is Game 7, and it was in the conference semifinals against the Dallas Mavericks. And it wasn't the fact that they lost, it was more how they lost. With the first half consisting of the entire Phoenix Suns team scoring only 27 points, Devin Booker not hitting one shot from the field, and the entire starting lineup only shooting 17% from the field in the first half. This one game alone overshadowed the best regular seasons the Suns had in franchise history, but also changed the convo about Devin Booker and if he's a superstar. After being named first All-NBA, his most memorable moment would be this. Now heading into the 2023 season, the big question for Devin Booker is to evolve his game further than being just a scorer, but also a passer and facilitator to create more opportunities for his teammates. The other big question was how much better DeAndre Ayton can get, who was the first pick of the 2018 draft, and funny enough, one of the players selected over Luka Doncic. Ayton was supposed to be a co-star beside Devin Booker and be a presence in the interior on offense and defense beside Devin Booker's presence on the perimeter. Though he was a capable starter, this is far from what everyone expected him to be coming out of Arizona. And the supposed versatile big has been very inconsistent, though there was also issues with him and the coach Monty Williams, but I'll get into that later. But now you go into the 2023 season with a few questions surrounding the overall roster, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, and all of them being answered by the end of that 2023 season. First with the roster. Like I said earlier, the Suns were built with a lot of depth at the wing position and was one of the main reasons why they were able to make deep playoff runs for those past two seasons in 2021 and 2022. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Jay Crowder were all crucial to the way the Suns handled defensive assignments as well as spacing out the floor offensively. And what they provided offensively as three-point shooters as well as defensively being as versatile as they were, those skills are very hard to come by in the NBA. Though the Suns in the 2023 season wouldn't have the same momentum as they did in the season prior, as they would start out their first 26 games 16-10 before Devin Booker would go down with an injury, missing 21 games, and the Suns going 10-11 in that stretch. Then around the 2023 trade deadline, they would trade all their wing depth in Bridges, Cam Johnson, as well as future picks to the Nets for superstar Kevin Durant, and this would be their answer to the question with Devin Booker and how effective can he be with another star that has gravity. Meaning a player in Kevin Durant that holds a lot of attention from defenses that makes it even harder for defenses to guard Devin Booker within that offense as well. And their question would be answered in the playoffs with the Suns finishing 45-37 as a fourth seed. Then in the first round of the playoffs, the Suns would handle the Clippers in 5 games before losing to the eventual champion Denver Nuggets. During that run, Booker went off, upping his averages from the regular season to the playoffs, showing how great he could be with another star caliber player, providing more attention from defenses in Kevin Durant. This matchup as a whole was where the Suns really just got outscored more than anything, but there were two big issues. First being with Chris Paul, that would end up missing most of the series due to injury. And this was nothing new for Chris Paul's career, as he would miss some of the most important moments of his career in the playoffs due to injury. This injury was a big blow to the Suns, as they didn't have a solid backup to replace even half of what Chris Paul did as a distributor and a leader. Then to talk about the interior, DeAndre Ayton just wasn't cutting it in that series in the second round, as his averages would drop significantly from the regular season. And added that with his problems with Coach Monty Williams at the time made it even more difficult for DeAndre Ayton to get a consistent role on this team and even consistent minutes. So then entering the 2024 season, there was some concerns that the Suns would need to answer for them to become true contenders in the Western Conference. Yes, they had the talent with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, but the problem was that they didn't have anything else that they can rely on. An injury-riddled point guard when it comes to the playoffs, and an inconsistent big that relies too much on mid-range shots while still not being the biggest positive on defense isn't the recipe for success for a long playoff run. So they tried to answer all these problems in the 2023 offseason, first the Suns firing head coach Monty Williams, then later trading Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. First, with the reason why they let go of Monty Williams was some of the bad relationships he had with some of the players, most notable being DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder. Also, the other reason being the expectations that ownership had after they traded for Kevin Durant midseason, where the new owner Matt Ishbia expected a lot more than a second round exit. The overall move was still kind of questionable, knowing how successful they were with KD, as well as the fact that they lost to the eventual champions in the Denver Nuggets. Though the Suns trading Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton made a little bit more sense due to how consistent they wanted to be at the point guard and the center position, but the only problem was who they traded for. First with the Chris Paul trade, as they would end up acquiring Bradley Beal, who was still a near all-star level talent at shooting guard, but keep that position in mind. Then trading DeAndre Ayton and recently drafted Toumani Camara, who is an important player to mention, for Grayson Allen and Jusuf Nurkic. And it was very tough for the Suns in the end, as acquiring a center in Nurkic who didn't fit well with the Suns as a bad interior defender and poor spacer on offense, and an overpaid shooting guard in Bradley Beal who needs the ball in his hands with barely any heavy usage to be shared with Durant and Booker also on the court. And on top of his massive contract, he had a no trade clause, which I don't know why Washington gave it to him, but they were very lucky to get off of that contract when they did. And importantly, the Bradley Beal trade meant Devin Booker was moved to point guard, where you would have him generate a lot more of the offense for the Suns as a passer. Devin Booker was still able to stay efficient as a primary ball handler on the Suns, but overall, the Suns still struggled throughout their first seasons with injuries throughout the regular seasons, with their main three players not playing a lot together, resulting in the 2024 season where they would finish worse as a 6th seed, despite winning more games that season with 49 wins on the season. But now another big problem for the Suns is the rest of the Western Conference, as they have been improving a lot over time, and this resulted in 5 teams being ahead of them with 50 wins or more. And the Suns season would end quick, as the 3rd seeded Minnesota Timberwolves would beat them in 4 games in a sweep. And it only got worse for the Suns, as in the 2025 season they would miss the playoffs completely. So overall, the Booker KD era for the Suns was a failure compared to what they did previously, mostly due to what they had to trade for Kevin Durant. And trading these role players for KD without any true replacements already on their team basically gutted their roster. Again, over this time, they didn't lose only reliable defensive players on the perimeter, but also a point guard in Chris Paul. And even though very inconsistent, DeAndre Ayton was the best big they had during this time as well. And now Booker and the Suns are coming in a completely different situation from years prior, with Booker no longer having an elite scorer around him in Kevin Durant, as he was traded to the Houston Rockets for wings Jalen Green, who throughout his career has been a really streaky scorer, as well as Dillon Brooks, who's still a capable defender that brings a high motor. And yes, this would be the best defender they brought in since the initial KD trade. And though the Suns have been pretty bad when it comes to trades these past couple seasons, they've been making pretty good strides in the draft. As we'll start in drafting wing Ryan Dunn, who has the potential of being a high-level defender in the league, who's only in his second year right now. As well as also Iguodala in that same 2024 draft, who's a high IQ center. As well as having multiple picks in the first round, first drafting Kaman Maluwaks, who's a high potential big coming out of Duke. As well as drafting Rasher Fleming, who's a high motor 3-and-D prospect, and a sharpshooter in Kobe Bryant in the second round. All players who seem to fit well around Booker in the future. Not only did they address their need at center in the draft in Kamal Maluwak, but they also did it through trades, as in the season prior they would acquire Nick Richards, and then they would trade for center Mark Williams, who's been very productive but still a injury risk at times. But knowing their future ahead, they have pretty good center depth at this moment. All of them having play finishing skills as lob threats beside Devin Booker, as well as Mark Williams being a very good rim protector as a starting center. So with all the positive strides that the Suns made to balance out their team, it would still seem that the Suns are far away from being contenders in this stacked Western Conference. Though right now in the season, the Suns are surprising many, including myself, as after their 1-4 start to begin the season, they were able to win 10 of their next 12 games before losing 3 or 4 to the top 3 seeds in the West in OKC, Denver, and Houston. And in the Suns' first month, they've been really interesting, highlighted by not only their top players in Devin Booker, but Dylan Brooks averaging a career high in points and 2-point efficiency so far. But what has mostly been a team effort, especially in the absence of Jalen Green, who's been out most of the season due to injury, as the Suns right now rank as a top 15 team both in offensive and defensive efficiency. Now with this momentum puts the Suns in a good situation to either sell high on some of their players right now, to trade for future assets and draft picks, or to continue to develop their players right now to compete for the next few years. And whether they do decide to upgrade their talent or try and develop, both I think are pretty good options for them right now compared to how grim the future was a season ago. If they do keep the talent they have right now and try and develop them, I don't see them as title contenders, but from what we've seen from seasons prior, with playoff implications, that gap between teams might be smaller than you think, especially when injuries pile up near the end of the season. I don't think anyone really had the Pacers going to the finals last year, for example, or even the Mavericks back in 2024. And then you'll have one team that will surprise you, like the 2021 Phoenix Suns that ended up going to the finals, where they were just a young team with potential at first, with some veteran help, but didn't really look like title contenders going into the playoffs. So with the roster that's been surprisingly impressive to start the season, alongside what seems to be an underrated superstar in Devin Booker, now a Suns team with no draft assets until the 2030s still has a very bright future ahead of them compared to the season prior. And now it'll be fun to see with a front office that have been doing a good job as of recent of getting Devin Booker good talent around him that fits around him. But now comes the time where the Suns could go back into the same lane of getting another star beside Booker, but not the way they did it before, but with a much cheaper price tag. But if they go into the route of having their current depth along with developing their young players, or meeting around the middle and having that same depth or young talent alongside another star beside Devin Booker, the Suns are in a very good spot to keep Devin Booker for one in the long term, as well as having a good team that can contend in the West. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think the Suns with their current roster, and if some of their prospects develop, can actually become playoff contenders in the West? Or do you think the Suns are just one bad stretch of basketball away from Devin Booker potentially leaving? So if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.